Hello and welcome back to the Yogis Pod. In this video, I will be talking about how you can process or integrate a spiritual experience. I receive a lot of emails about this, and even in my consultation sessions, a lot of people want to talk about their experiences in order to better understand them, integrate them, and move on happily with their lives. So, integration of a spiritual experience happens as a very natural process. The intention, therefore, is not to interfere with it, but to rather be in a natural state of flow with it. Integrating a mystical experience with awareness can be a beautiful experience rather than a destabilizing or an unsettling one, as it seems to be the case for some of us. I'm going to be taking a very simple and generalized approach towards this, which may apply to most cases, if not all. Spiritual experiences can happen in many, many ways. God only knows how many, or Singularity only knows. But eventually, the goal is to see and realize that each and every moment of this life is spiritual. Or, in other words, to realize that there is an unending depth to this moment and how it is connected to anything and everything at the same time. But that's too much to discuss in a YouTube video. So, for the context of this video, we are referring to an experience which is beyond the ordinary as a spiritual experience, beyond what the five senses are generally capable of. I have had many different kinds of mystical experiences in my life, and through most of them, I did not have anyone who could give me an explanation. And that left me to figure things out by myself. And just as an example, I have only been able to talk about my experience of Kailash 7 years after it had happened. At times, I would have people with a deeper perception than mine tell me what it was. But usually, this guidance came several years later. So it would take about a decade sometimes before I could get some form of closure about it. Only then I could say with clarity and with my own knowing as to what had happened and what caused it and why it happened, then I would figure out what changes I must bring about in terms of my external life choices in order to accommodate for the new understanding. And after an intense experience of this kind, you tend to find yourself in a vulnerable position and your whole world seems to have turned upside down. And nobody has any explanation for what has happened to you. And if you do tell them, they give you a look which is of genuine concern and fear of you going insane. So if that's where you're at, I will try to help. The point is to wake up, not to get a PhD in waking up. So the first thing to do is to not label it. Don't jump to conclusions about it, especially with a racing mind. Don't try to force it into something it is not. You don't have to give your experience titles of samadhi or satori or enlightenment. I had a friend who would come to me enlightened every week. And then I would ask him a few questions, and soon enough, his whole enlightenment story would collapse. This happened many, many times, and each time he would leave feeling punctured. Then he stopped coming to me, of course, so I don't know his current state of enlightenment. I do wish him all the best anyway. Who am I to say he is or isn't enlightened today? But whatever your experience is, it does not need a label for it to mean something substantial. The experience in of itself is valuable. If that experience itself is profound, you won't need to find it in some book to give it validity. See, why I'm saying this is because if our mind is pressured, it is capable of conjuring up all kinds of experiences. Depending upon your religion, you will see a God corresponding to that religion. And again, I'm no one to say whether you can or cannot meet God. I genuinely mean this. I'm not trying to impose my thinking upon you. But I'm just saying you should think a little before you take a turn for the mental asylum. Because although in spirituality I have met some truly beautiful, absolutely magical beings, but spirituality also attracts a lot of nutcases. So if we are to call ourselves spiritual, we should operate with a certain level of sense and rationality. I don't know why some spiritual people become anti-intellectual. You say something which makes sense and they label you as an intellectual, as if that's a bad thing. And I say this knowing the intellect has its limits. But most people seem to be very far from challenging that limit. And I admit things get crazy the further you go into mystical realms of reality. Fact is stranger than fiction, and the reality we live in is nothing short of a miracle. If you can perceive the fundamentals of existence in terms of seemingly simple things like air, water, and gravity, and the planet that we're on, which is spinning and going through space, I can go on, but you get the picture. It's all pretty crazy, right? But still, you have to be rooted in rationality first if you want to go into these realms. So, no labeling. The label does not give it validity. A phenomena such as spiritual realization does not seek validation in the mind or in a book, neither does it seek validity from someone else. Maybe that's enlightenment enough to know that there is no final resting place of the mind, no moment of smug clarity. Perhaps wisdom is realizing how small I am and unwise, and how far I have yet to go. This is a beautiful quote by Anthony Bourdain. What we're doing here is neutralizing the frills and decorations the mind projects. How clear your perception is will determine how accurately you interpret these experiences. So always keep a margin of error for yourself, because we all have a certain amount of mental conditioning which leads to distortions, whether we like it or not. Now, the important thing here is to have a stable mind. How does one get a stable mind? That is through sadhana, spiritual practices, implementation of spiritual knowledge in your life, which then turns into spiritual wisdom. Application of yourself to this reality. Instead of staying delulu in your own world, you must approach it with a certain sense of equanimity. And this is completely opposite of this I want to be special kind of attitude. Because if your experience has any substance to it, this I am special thing should settle down, which usually comes from a smaller identity of the ego. If by some means an experience descends upon you and you're not prepared for it, you will not respond to it in a positive way. And I'm saying this from my own personal experience. Some experiences are difficult to handle by themselves, and you add an unbalanced mind to the mix. It's a recipe for disaster. So most of the work that we do on the spiritual path is preparatory in nature, because only the right kind of atmosphere can be an invitation for an experience of the beyond. You can't really do much after a certain point. Nature or the larger aspect of who we are does the picking. We can live very well for sure. We can enhance our capabilities. We can live happy and fulfilled lives if we put effort and energy into the right things. Preparation and the importance of a consistent spiritual practice is a whole topic for another video, which will be coming up soon. But I just wanted to emphasize its importance in the context of integration. After a while, you must be able to distance yourself from the experience. And experience is a function of time, and it will pass. Let it go. Learn from it. Be grateful for it, but do not cling to it. Don't make it into a medal pinned to your chest. True spiritual experiences are very humbling in nature. If an experience has caused you to take flight, you must ground yourself. Implement the simplest spiritual knowledge. We are a part of something much larger. If you experience something larger than yourself, having a sense of humility and reverence to the life around you is a very natural consequence. So, such experiences should break your ego or your smaller, more limited identities, and you will feel the loss of that, including the way you were. All the things which you thought constitutes you has now been deeply affected, and you will take time to slowly find your footing in this newly found, deeper, and more profound sense of experience. And this is what the path entails. You're constantly in a process of destruction of your ideas and persona and concepts, and you form new, more refined ones to adjust for your new learnings. Don't go scurrying back to your old ways in terms of your lifestyle and your internal patterns. In fact, you should be able to identify older patterns which are of no use to you, and you will have to exercise your freedom of choice, your discretion to do things and to think and feel in ways which are more in alignment with your new energetic level. It's a good time to change and transform and allow new life energies to enter you and just enter your life with freshness. The old is boring, it's a repetition. Don't fall for its promise of security. It's a lie. Security is in growth, security is in the new, it's in your transformation. This is why I say one should never have conclusive labels about other people. The moment you say this person is bad and this is how they are and they will always be, you're simultaneously putting that upon yourself. Life is a two-way street. And of course, you can choose not to be around some people. And of course, you must move with the wisdom that life is ever changing and they are on their own path of evolution. And with that, we allow ourselves space to emerge into new states of consciousness. Another form of clinging is the desire to repeat the experience. This can be done sometimes, but that is to be determined on a case-by-case basis. But it's often best to just move on, and that again becomes a good way to allow for newer experiences. My next point is for people who are in the public domain as teachers or influencers in the field of spirituality, like myself. As far as social media is concerned, you don't have to announce and cash in on every spiritual experience that you have. Now, I must explain where I'm coming from here. I think it's amazing that so many people are sharing their profound life experiences, and we have a very conducive atmosphere today in the online space where people are acknowledging that yes, there is a spiritual nature to our existence. The naysayers are getting fewer and fewer in number, and we for sure need more and more people to come up and speak more about how they experience spirituality or this inner beauty of life we all possess. But this must not come from a compulsive, proving to the world kind of a place. And that is the danger if you're making a career out of it. The need to sell it to an audience for validation or attention or money is going to be a huge obstacle for you if you're not honest with yourself about this. And I understand and I exclude some people from this category who may just come with a sense of sharing. People come to me like this all the time, and I respect their trust in me. Just as a listener, my experience is beautiful as well. But the point is to check with your own self to see whether you're sharing for a cheap sense of personal gain and one-upmanship, or are you sharing for others in an authentic way, for their benefit in some way. And it is my personal recommendation to you that do not just share it with any random person that you know, as they may not respond well to it, and then you will feel hurt. Because fear and repulsion is an unconscious reaction to the unknown. Look for an individual with a certain level of maturity to share it with. And when in doubt, keep it to yourself. Don't attach to it. The true nature of it will unfold and reveal itself to you over time anyway. Be patient. Existence and life is an intelligent force. It keeps everything running perfectly. Its design is a tremendously beautiful phenomena, and we are all a part of it, and we're living in it. Which brings me to my last point. You are a part of nature. Act like it. Go sit in a park. Literally touch some grass. Put your bare feet on the ground without any insulation. And be around some trees and plants. Plants have a very positive impact on us. We share a lot more than just oxygen and carbon dioxide. We are not meant to live in a concrete box all day. From time to time, just sit under a tree and see how you feel. Maybe something will happen. Take care and see you in the next one.